everybody, thanks for watching Bre'sBooks. Today I'm doing my February wrap-up. So this last month I read a total of 16 things. Only three of them were full-fledged books. The rest were graphic novels. I've kind of been on a binge lately, as I mentioned in my March TBR, so that's why a lot of these are graphic novels. I've been getting a lot from the library and I've really been enjoying them. So, on that note, a lot of these I don't have with me to show you, but I will put a picture up because they were from the library and I had already returned them previously. The first one was Mega Tokyo Volume 1 by Fred Gallagher. This was one I just saw on a whim at the library, and so I decided to try it. It was okay. It wasn't my favorite. I give it 3 stars. It was okay. It was just a little slow for me, I guess, or boring. It was only the first volume, so maybe I'm being too harsh on it, but it was about two boys that loved video games that spontaneously decided to take a trip to Japan, only to find out that they had run out of money when they got there. And so it's kind of their story, at least the first volume of their story and how that happened. The second graphic novel I read in February was Friends with Boys by Faith Erin Hicks. I also gave that 3 stars, although I did enjoy it more than Mega Tokyo. It's sort of about a broken family's journey through high school and their experiences, and there's a little bit of a supernatural element to it. The art wasn't my favorite, but the story was pretty interesting overall. I did like it. The third thing I read in February was the first novel I picked up in the month, and it was Since You've Been Gone by Morgan Matson. This is my first Morgan Matson book, and I loved it. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. It was not what I was expecting. It was much deeper and richer than I was expecting from a so-called summer contemporary read. But I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the character growth in this book. A lot of crazy things happened in this book, and I really enjoyed it. If you like stories about friendship or contemporary summer reads at all, high school reads, I definitely would give this a try. It is very, very well written. The next thing I picked up in February was a graphic novel called Prime Baby by Jean Luen Yang. Jean Luen Yang is the guy who also did the Boxers and Saints companion series that I actually just finished at the end of February, which I'll get to in a minute. So I've pretty much just been reading a lot of his works lately just because I really enjoy his artwork, and Prime Baby was no exception. It was super, super short graphic novel, but I just thought the idea was just so fun and just silly and really quick read, but it was fun, and I gave it 4 stars. The next one I read was The Eternal Smile by Jean Luen Yang as well. I gave it 3 stars. It was a collection of, I think, 3 smaller graphic novels in one bind-up. It was okay. I just didn't really particularly like any of the stories that were in there, but I did like the artwork and everything overall. The next graphic novel I picked up in the month of February was Page by Page by Laura Lee Guledge, and I really enjoyed that one. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. It is about a girl who has just moved to New York with her parents and wants to be an artist, but she doesn't think she's any good, and she's really unnerved by having to move her whole life into this huge new city where she doesn't know anyone. And it's kind of her journey. It's full of beautiful illustrations of her drawings and other pictures, and I just thought it was really interesting. It was unlike anything I'd read before, so I really liked it. The next thing I picked up was my second book of the month, and it was Serafina by Rachel Hartman. This cover, this is one of my favorite covers ever. This was a fantastic book. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars as well as Since You've Been Gone, and this is I don't know if you could call it a historical fantasy. It kind of has a historical feel to it, but also obviously has dragons, so I'm going to go with historical fantasy novel. This one was also more in depth than I was expecting. I really enjoyed it though. you got to know a lot of the characters more than you would think in a book with as many characters as this book has. And the plot had some good like twists and surprises in it, and some really lovable characters, and a lot more like court and political intrigue than I was expecting as well, which was sort of a pleasant surprise, a little deeper than I might have originally liked, but it fit into the story very well, and I'm very glad I read this month. After reading that novel, I wanted to pick up something a little bit lighter, so I picked up Seconds by Brian and Lee O'Malley. I gave that 4 out of 5 stars. I've been wanting to pick it up for forever, saw it at the library and got my hands on it. I really love Brian Lee O'Malley's artwork. It is like his lines are just so clean and thick, and the color in this graphic novel is beautiful. I didn't enjoy too many of the characters though. I thought that they were making all the wrong choices, most of them, but the story itself was still very fascinating overall, and I really did enjoy it, so I gave it 4 stars. The next one I read was American Born Chinese by Jean Luen Yang, and I gave that 4 out of 5 stars. It was very well done. Again, it had the clean, crisp lines, really thick, beautiful artwork. Just again, it was kind of a combination of like 3 stories in one. I did enjoy how they like sort of meshed together at the end, but a couple of the stories as they were by themselves I didn't particularly like. Then I definitely this month, after reading Seraphina, had to pick up the sequel ARC copy that I got, Shadow Scale by Rachel Hartman. And if you can tell, this is quite a bit thicker than the first one, so it took me a lot longer to get through, but I'm very glad I did. I didn't like it as much as the first one. I did only end up giving it 4 out of 5 stars, but I'm very, very glad I read it, and this comes out the 15th of this month, so just in a couple weeks. Definitely check this out if you have read Seraphina or are interested in reading Seraphina, because you'll want to pick this one up pretty soon after reading the first one, I think. But this one just goes even more in depth into the like political and court intrigue and like racial discrimination stuff that the first one had. So it was a little bit slower for me in parts, being as how long it was, but I did plow through it, and I'm very glad I picked this one up for 4 out of 5 stars. The next one was also was a collection of short stories, actually, which I did not realize when I put on hold at the library. I thought it was another graphic novel, but it ended up being a collection of short stories, and I gave it 3 out of 5 stars because there's about half or a little over half of the stories I didn't really enjoy. This was by Laura Geringer, by the way. I think she just edited it, but she might have written 1 or 2 of the stories in there as well, but it is from, the stories were written by a variety of authors, and I don't know, I didn't really enjoy, like, at least half of the stories in there. There were a couple that I liked, but some of the stories were hard to get through, so I just gave it a solid 3 out of 5 stars. Next graphic novel I read was Drama by Raina Telgemeier, Telgemeier. I don't know how to say that, but that's how it's spelled, and I gave that 5 out of 5 stars. This again had the beautiful art style that I love, clean, solid lines, beautiful coloring in the art, and I really enjoyed the story too. The characters were hilarious and fun, and I think this one actually took place in middle school, which was a unique change. I really enjoyed the story. It was super fun. I gave it 4 stars. The next graphic novel I picked up was A Hunk of a Thing, and it was the first volume of Castle Waiting by Linda Medley. When I first started this, I was really excited because from the synopsis, I heard it was sort of like a fairy tale retelling, like combination thing, and it did start that way. It started with like the tale of Sleeping Beauty, basically, and it is a graphic novel. in black and white, which I didn't mind. It did get a little slow for me in parts in the middle, but I did like how all the different characters, or you got to see a lot of the different characters' backstories. Now it kind of tied together and nice at the end. There is a second volume to this, but I'm not really in any hurry to finish it. I'm not even sure if I'm gonna read the second one, just because it was just sort of tedious and slow for me in parts. So I'm not really sure. This one's kind of up in the air for me if I'm gonna continue with this series. But I did end up giving it 4 stars for a solid story and characters and art. The next one I read was a graphic novel called Level Up by Jean Luan Yang. See, I told you I was reading most all of his work this month. This is a super short graphic novel about a boy who loves video games. Obviously, you can tell by the cover. But he's trying to fulfill his father's wishes of going into medical school and becoming a gastroenterologist or something like that. It's the doctor that takes care of like the intestines and the liver and those types of organs. And so it was kind of a unique read. I really enjoyed it, just the progression of it, and the color scheme was sort of watercolory, which was pretty nice. And yeah, it was just a short, interesting little readable book, and I liked it. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. The next 2 I read was finally, like I mentioned before, Boxers and Saints by Jean Luan Yang. I read Boxers first because that was what Goodreads had marked as the first book in the companion series, and then I read Saints. This one, Boxers, the first one was obviously a lot thicker than Saints, which I was kind of bummed because I kind of wanted more of her story than this guy's story, but that's okay. This is about like civil war in China in the late 1800s. So the art was beautiful, as you can tell by the covers. Very clean lines, bright colors, like, you know, I should know by now, but that I really enjoy. The content was obviously pretty sad and makes your heart ache for what happened to these people. It is historical fiction as far as I know, but yeah, it is based on events that actually happened. I believe I gave these both 4 out of 5 stars. I probably wouldn't reread them, but I'm really glad I read them the one time, and they go together so beautifully. That was all the books I read in the month of February. I'll hold up the ones I have so I can get a thumbnail thing here. Pretty good stack, even not counting the books that I don't have with me anymore. And yeah, I hope you have a wonderful day. I'll see you in my next video. Goodbye!